Okay, so again, solving by substitution. Again, we're solving for x and y. So remember, every time you guys solve for these problems, when you're solving a system, so taking this as a system, you always want to solve for x and y. So I'm going to put my Cornell notes over here on the side. And I'll get my highlighters, regular highlighters that you have. By the way, if you got like a free highlighter when you first start of the year, but either way, I recommend having highlighters on hand if you have them, you can get them. All right, so remember, we're looking for the isolated variable. So we need an isolated variable. In this case, our isolated variable is y. So if y is isolated, that means the other part of the equation we're going to plug into the next equation. So this negative 2x is equal to y, so that's what we're going to plug in. And you're going to plug it into y. So now this gets plugged in here. So that's, again, we want to make sure you're plugging it in the right place. All right? So then we're going to plug in, set this one in here, Julian. We're going to plug in negative 2x into y of the other equation. So we're going to plug in negative 2x into y of the other equation. Okay? Got a second there. Get that. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to rewrite that first equation. And remember, I'm replacing or substituting this equation into y. So I want to make sure I write parentheses wherever I do that. So here, that negative 2x, I'm going to plug that in. So there it is. And here's the challenging thing too, is pay attention to your negatives. Okay, so if that's negative, make sure you write that negative. Because sometimes our brains trick us and we're like, you already see a negative here, so you forget about it. Okay, so make sure you're writing those signs in there if you write it. And then we want to set that equal to the rest of it, so negative 48. And now we're just simplifying the equation. Okay. Okay, so now first thing we want to do is multiply. So negative 6 times negative 2x. Well, that's going to be positive 12 or plus 12. And I just bring down the rest of the equation. I'm actually going to, let's go ahead and draw a line to organize. So bring down the negative 4x, bring down the negative 48, along with the equal sign in the middle. Okay, now I have two like terms. So just like I talked about yesterday, those are like terms. So I'm going to combine them. So combine like terms. And remember, Adam, you asked me about this yesterday. Like, what about this number on the side? I'm only combining these two because they both have x. That's not a like term. That's a constant. In other words, it doesn't have a variable. So now negative 4x plus 12x. Well, I got different signs. One's negative, one's positive. So I'm going to subtract them. So I'll do 12 minus 4. It's 8x. And then I pay attention to what's the bigger number. Well, 12 is the bigger number, so I know it's positive 8x. You always use a calculator if you want to. Bring down the negative 48. Now we're going to divide. And x equals negative 6. So negative divided by positive. Okay, so now we're good. We got x, but we still have to find y. So remember, we also got to find y, or find the other variable. So here, I'm going to find y. And I would say use the easier equation, the one that has less terms or less negatives. Now, obviously, do the second one. So we're going to basically take our x and now plug it into x. If you notice, we're doing a lot of plugging in, and that's why it's called substitution, because we're substituting numbers for variables. So that is going to get plugged into x. Because in the beginning, we're taking an equation and plugging it in. Then we're taking a number and plugging it in. So it's like substitution constant. So -2 times -6. So then y equals -2 times -6, which would be positive 12. And then again, every solution, always write it as x, parentheses, x, comma, and then your y, and then parentheses again. So that we're going to write it as -6, and then positive 12. Okay. So here I'm going to include write solution as x, comma, y with parentheses. I just want to re-emphasize that again. Okay. This section here, the other way. Okay, one more. And we'll just do one more example. And then I'll kind of review back or refer back to some other examples that we already took notes on before. Okay, so let me kind of shift this down a little bit so you guys can still see the rest of that other problem, but work down here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write the problem. X equals 9y, and then x minus 5y equals 1. Okay, so we have x equals 9y, then x minus 5y equals 20. Make sure I wrote it down correctly. All right, I did. All right, so now, again, just like before, we need that isolated variable. So here, x is isolated. I'll kind of highlight that pink just to emphasize what I'm talking about. Okay, then we're going to plug 9y into other equation. I know I should say into the other, but again, just trying to keep it short. Okay, so now that means I plug in this part of the equation into the x, because it's the isolated variable is x, so that's where I'm going to plug it in. It's actually a good example. Okay, so that means that 9y will go here. Now notice there's nothing in front of the x except for there is technically a 1. All right, so let me actually do like that. Different color here. There's a 1 in front of that. So if I'm going to multiply 1, they're going to change anything? No, it's not going to do anything. So like here when I'm emphasizing writing parentheses, that's to remind you that you're going to multiply times whatever number it's next to. But if it's just 1, there's really nothing to do. I mean, it's just times 1, so it's not going to change anything. So in this case, just because I have that, I don't really need to write parentheses, but I'm going to anyways just to help you remind you guys, okay? So I don't have to do the parentheses there, but I'm going to do it just as a reminder, because sometimes we want to do things out of habit, just so we don't forget in the future, all right? So again, here we've got like terms. I don't have to do anything with those parentheses, so I can go ahead and combine those two. So I get 4y equals 20, and then divide 4, and y equals 5. Okay, now instead of finding y, we already have y, now we're going to find x. Okay, take the easier equation, just like before. X equals 9y. And now we just plug in that 5 now into the y part of the equation. x is equal to 9 times 5, which is 45. So now, here's we got to make sure, because we solve for y first, doesn't mean that's the first number that goes here. You got to remember that your x always will go first, whether you solve for it the first time or the second time. So here, 45, comma, would be our solution. Good. Okay, so substitution. Next week, we're gonna get into one more method in solving for solutions. And that one's elimination. And I will have, again, assignments for next week posted next week. So each week, expect that the first school day of the week, that's when I'm gonna post assignments. So like this week, the first school day was Tuesday, so I posted Tuesday. Whereas next week, the first school day is technically Monday, even though I know none of us are on campus.